Hello,
Hello,
Dwight.
Dwight. Hello, Dwight. My name is Manu. Hello, Dwight. My name is Zoe.
And so, which question you wanted to ask him?
So, twist question.
Non, mais dis-le en français.
C'est quoi la question? Pourquoi vous avez choisi l'ado?
Okay, so the question is, Dwight, why did you choose the viola? And Héloïse, pourquoi tu as choisi l'alto? Et Manon, pourquoi tu as choisi l'alto?
Parce qu'au début, je voulais faire de la guitare et après, je suis allée à un concert d'ado et j'ai trouvé ça bien.
Oh, because she went to a concert and she completely fell in love with the viola.
Moi, c'est parce que, au début, je voulais faire de la guitare.
For Zoe,
J'ai bien aimé l'alto, donc j'ai essayé.
she just chose the viola because she chose the viola. So, we say bye-bye, Dwight.
Bye, Dwight.
See you.
See you.
Allez, et on va lui chanter l'air. Hein? C'est l'alto que nous préférons de tous les instruments. L'alto, c'est celui qui traduit mieux nos sentiments. Il peut vraiment tout jouer, colère, tristesse et puis la joie. L'idéal compagnon de notre vie, c'est l'alto. Youhou!
Bonjour, à nouveau, amis merveilleux, amis enfants. I have two questions from you which I have not yet answered. Let's begin. Question number 1. How old were you when you became a viola player? To answer this question, it will be necessary to ask yet another question, and then perhaps another. So here's the question I wish to interject. Interjected question. Why did you begin playing the viol? Pourquoi avez-vous commencé à jouer de l'alto? You may have heard a partial answer in one of my earlier tapes. Here is my response. My teacher, a very lovely lady, just like Madame Caloustian, wanted to cover the tenor line in her church ensemble, which consisted only of violinists. I went to my lesson one day, and there on the table was the biggest violin I had ever seen. Well, it looked like a violin, but was quite large. The back of a standard full-sized violin is approximately 356 millimeters. This violin, that looked like it was on steroids, was 419 millimeters. I said to my teacher, I presume this is the viola that you wanted for the ensemble and that's for me to play. She said, yes, you are correct. You were quite tall. I was 187 centimeters tall. You have very long arms, 193 centimeters from fingertip to fingertip, and should be able to play the viola with comfort. Equally important, you have a good ear and should easily adjust to the wider finger spacings on the viola. However, please notice that my answer can be very misleading. You don't have to be tall and have long arms and fingers to play the viola. Just look at your classmates, all different sizes and all viola players. Another question might be, did you want to play the viola? Vous voulez jouer de l'alto? No, I really didn't want to play the viola and never asked to, but looked upon it as a very interesting experiment. It was the second that I played the first open string that I wanted to play the viola. So, how old was I when I began playing the viola? Obviously, I had most of my growth at that time, so I wasn't 12 or 13. I was 15, almost 16. How do I know that? Because I had completely switched to viola by the time I was 16. Another inserted question. What was the biggest problem you faced as a beginning viola player? Answer, the bass clef. Yes, you heard correctly. The bass clef, not the alto. That would come later. But for now, I was reading the tenor line in church hymns, which were written in 4-part harmony like piano music. I quickly figured out that the C string was the second space in the bass clef, just like the A string is the second space in the treble clef. I began playing the viola by pretending that the low C on the viola was the A string on the violin and fingered accordingly. I also pretended that the G string was the violin E string. It sounded rather strange, but the notes and fingers matched very well, and I became proficient with the tenor line quite quickly. Question number 2. Who is your favorite composer? The easiest answer is the composer whose music I happened to be playing when asked. I love the great masters like Beethoven, Mozart, Haydn, Debussy, Saint-Saëns, and I'm particularly fond of Elgar and Vaughan Williams, and the rest, but allow me to slightly alter the question. Which is your favorite composer of viola music? I love all of the great pieces for viola, particularly Bartók and Walton, and also the lovely pieces by Schubert and Schumann. But I would like to tell you a story of one that is quite infrequently played, but works beautifully on the viola, and this was the very first viola concerto I ever learned. But there is a mystery involved. The concerto I learned was by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, who never wrote a viola concerto. The piece I have in mind is Mozart's Violin Concerto No. 3 in G major, K216, transposed down a perfect fifth by Lilian Fuchs to make it Mozart's Viola Concerto in C major, K216. Lilian Fuchs, who lived from 1901 to 1995, a violist, a teacher, and a composer, is a name that you need to know. Now, back to the concerto. I had a new teacher when I was 16, Julius Hegyi, an American with a Hungarian name. He was an authority on the music of Mozart, meaning I learned not only bowing, shifting, and tricky fingering, but also musicianship, phrasing, interpretation, and stage presence. It was a marvelous series of lessons, and I very much hope that you are having similar experiences right now. One additional inserted question. What happened that made you decide to switch to the viola? Well, I have another important story about Mr. Hegyi. At my first lesson, I began with the violin. He immediately said, "You brought a viola? I want to hear you play it." I played the viola for him, and he immediately said, "That is your instrument. You are more comfortable with the viola and get a better and more convincing sound. You are a viola player. Vous êtes l'altiste." I don't think I said that right. Vous êtes altiste. It was at that second that I became a violist. These answers to your questions are very long and quite detailed, so allow me please to finish this video with a very simple and direct answers to your question. How old were you when you became a viola player? I was 15, almost 16. Who is your favorite composer? I have many favorites, just as you do, but I'm very fond of Mozart and Brahms and Schumann and Debussy and Ravel. Well, you get the idea. Merci encore pour vos questions. Au revoir.